In the previous class, we discussed about the Gauss law. There we discussed the two cases. One is when the charge is inside the closed surface, and in the second case we discussed about the charge outside the closed surface. In this class, we are going to study the applications of Gauss law. In our syllabus, we have two applications. One is infinite conducting of sheet. The second one is a sphere. But before going to these applications, we have to know what is meant by charge density, and the other one is how the charge given to a conducting sphere or conducting body and non-conducting body will distribute throughout the material. So first we have to know these two fundamentals, and after that we will enter into the applications. See this slide. In this slide, we are going to know what is meant by charge density. Here, there are three types of charge densities. The first one is charge density or volume charge density. The second one is areal charge density or surface charge density. The third one is linear charge density. Coming to this charge density, this is represented by the letter rho. Here I am taking a body of a volume V, and a charge Q is given to this body. So volume of the body is V and charge given to this body is Q. When this charge Q is given to this body, this charge Q is distributed throughout the body. Then what is the charge per unit volume? This charge per unit volume is called charge density. So here see the definition. Charge per unit volume is called the charge density. That means what is the charge in a unit volume? Unit volume means it may be 1 meter cube volume or 1 centimeter cube volume. The quantity of charge density E rho will be equal to the ratio of the charge given to the body and the volume of the body. So Q by V will give the charge density. This is the charge per unit volume, and the unit for Q is coulombs, and similarly the unit for volume is meter cube. So Q by V has a unit of coulomb per meter cube, and this is the unit of charge density, and Q by V is the quantity of charge density. And after that we go to another case, that is surface charge density or areal charge density. This is represented by sigma, a Greek letter sigma, and in this case we will take a surface, a two-dimensional thing. Let it be a plate, and that plate has a surface area equal to A, and for this plate we are giving a charge Q, this charge Q. Then this charge Q is distributed throughout the area A. Then the charge per unit area is called the surface charge density or areal charge density. So that is the definition. So definition is charge per unit area is called the areal charge density. This is the charge contained within unit area, and the quantity can be measured by taking the ratio of the charge given to the surface and the surface area of the plate. So sigma is equal to Q by A is the quantity of surface charge density. Its unit is coulomb per meter square. Coulomb is for the charge, that is the quantity of charge, and meter square is the unit for area. So coulomb per meter square is the unit of surface charge density, and Q by A is the quantity of surface charge density, and that is represented by the letter sigma. In the third case, we will take a linear body, say a line or a stick. Let its length be L. L is the length of a stick, say, and we are giving a charge Q to that linear body. Then this charge Q is distributed throughout its length L. Then what is the charge per unit length? That charge per unit length is called the linear charge density. Linear charge density, that is represented by lambda. Here the linear charge density is simply the ratio of the charge given to the linear body and the length of the linear body. So Q by L will give the linear charge density. What is its unit? The charge has a unit equal to coulomb, and meter is the unit for length, and coulomb per meter is the unit of linear charge density. Here Q is the charge and L is the length of the linear body. And this is about different charge densities. One is charge density, other one is surface charge density or areal charge density, third one is linear charge density. Next, here we are taking a non-conducting sphere and a conducting sphere. What is the difference between a non-conductor and a conductor? Non-conductor means it is an insulator. That means it does not allow or the charge cannot flow through that material. That material is called a non-conducting material. If the charge can flow through that material is called a conducting material or simply a conductor. And here this is the conducting sphere and here is the non-conducting sphere. Say a charge Q is given to this non-conducting sphere. Then this charge Q or plus Q is distributed throughout the sphere. Say this is the total charge given and this charge is distributed throughout the sphere uniformly. Uniformly means evenly. Here there is reflection between the two positive charges. Then these two charges have to go away from each other. But in this material, this charge cannot flow or move. So wherever the charge is given, the charge remains there. So here in the case of non-conducting sphere, the total charge is evenly distributed throughout the sphere. Coming to this conducting sphere, when this same charge Q is given to this conducting sphere, here also there is repulsive force or repulsion between different positive charges. When there is repulsive force, these charges move away from each other and they will reach to the surface of the sphere because they can move or travel throughout the material. So when there is repulsion, they can move away from each other and they will reach the surface of the sphere. So even though the charge is given to the sphere, the charge cannot remain within the sphere and it will reach to the surface of the sphere. So if a charge is given to a non-conducting sphere, then it is uniformly distributed. If the same charge Q is given to a conducting sphere, then the charge will come to the surface of the sphere and there is no charge within the sphere and it goes to the upper surface of the sphere. Next, we will go to the applications of Gauss law. I have already told you we have two applications. in our syllabus. The first one is infinite conducting sheet. So here is a plate, and this is a conducting plate of large area. Say that area is A, and a charge Q is given to this plate. Since this is a conducting sheet or conducting plate, the total charge comes to the surface, that is the upper surface. Say this is the upper surface and this is the lower surface. This lower surface does not have any charge. The total charge is confined to the right side surface, and on the surface this charge is evenly distributed. Here we have to know what is the surface charge density. I have already told you the surface charge density sigma is equal to Q by A. Q is the total charge given to the plate and A is the surface area of the plate. Surface area means this surface. This surface means where the charge is confined. Then the charge Q from this equation, sigma is equal to Q by A, the total charge given to the plate is equal to sigma into A, where sigma is the surface charge density or areal charge density, that is already explained, and A is the area on which the charge is confined, this one. And in this case we want to know what is the electric field generated at a particular point due to this charged conducting sheet. I want to know the electric field intensity at the point P. So here P is the point where the electric field intensity is to be measured, and at this point P I will place a unit positive charge. That unit positive charge is repelled by this positive charge. Then what is the direction of the force? So if this positive charge Q repels this unit positive charge placed at the point P, that is reflected in this, not reflected, it is repulsive force, so it is moved away in this direction. So this is the direction of electric field intensity. And here I am taking the Gaussian surface. Earlier we know what is meant by a Gaussian surface. Gaussian surface means it is an imaginary surface, and that imaginary surface should be taken such that it passes through the point P. Here this is the Gaussian surface and this is taken in the form of a cylinder, and this cylinder is on two sides of this area, and this is in cylindrical shape. This cylinder has three surfaces. One is the left surface or left end, this one, and the right surface, this one, and the curved surface and this one. In order to find out the electric flux, we will take a small area on the left end. Here the direction of electric field is E bar, that is in this direction, and we will take a vector normal to the surface area, and its length is equal to the area of this surface, and that vector is called the aerial vector. This is also discussed earlier. So the aerial vector is in this direction, and this is parallel to E bar and perpendicular to the surface area, and having a magnitude equal to the area. Next one is, if you take the small surface area on the curved surface and its aerial vector is in this direction, these two are perpendicular to each other. These two means the electric field intensity vector E bar and this ds bar, these two are perpendicular to each other. So in this case theta is equal to 90, and in this case theta value is equal to 0 degrees. And coming to the left end, the charge on the left side is 0, and it has no electric field E bar here on the left end surface. Now here we want to measure or derive the expression for electric field intensity. The electric field intensity is also called as electric field in shortcut, and we know the expression for the Gauss law is flux phi is equal to integral E bar dot ds bar, that is equal to q by epsilon naught. This is the known equation. But here there are three surfaces, so the Gauss law has to be written for the three surfaces, that is for left hand, and second one is right hand, and next one is curved surface. So here I am writing the Gauss law for the three surfaces. The flux phi passing through the cylindrical Gaussian surface is equal to integral E bar dot ds bar, and next one for right hand integral E bar dot ds bar, and for third curved surface integral E bar dot ds bar. Next we will go to the first integral. For the first integral, E bar is equal to 0. Why? On the left surface there is no charge. If there is no charge, then it will not repel or attract the unit positive charge if it is placed on the left hand. So E bar is equal to 0, then this quantity will become 0. And coming to the curved surface, this curved surface, here E bar dot ds bar is equal to E ds cos theta, and in this curved surface the ds bar is in this direction and E bar is in this direction. The angle between these two is equal to 90 degrees. So theta is equal to 90 degrees, cos 90 is equal to 0. Then this quantity also becomes 0. So the first term becomes 0 and the third term also becomes 0, and only the second term remains. And next, this E for a given charge at a particular point, this E is constant. Then take out the E from the integral, so E into integral ds, and integral ds is equal to the total area of that surface, that is left hand surface, that means this surface, and say the area of that surface is equal to A. So the Gauss law equation will become phi, total flux phi is equal to E into A. This one is equal to Q by epsilon naught, and in the first equation we know this Q is equal to sigma A, where sigma is the surface charge density and A is the area. Then this right hand side A and left hand side A, these two gets cancelled, and then E will be equal to sigma by epsilon naught. So in the case of the conducting surface, the electric field intensity is equal to the ratio of the surface charge density to the permittivity of the free space where this charged surface is located or placed. And here we will take the other case also, that is the conducting sheet, non-conducting sheet. Suppose if a non-conducting sheet is taken, then the charge is confined to the two surfaces. Two surfaces means the left surface and this right surface. So the total charge is distributed between the left surface and the right surface, and for this case the left hand integral does not equal to 0, the right hand integral does not equal to 0, only the curved surface value will become 0. Then the left integral value will become E into A, and right hand integral value also becomes EA. Then this is equal to 2EA. Then phi is equal to 2EA is equal to Q by epsilon naught. Q is equal to sigma A by epsilon naught. Then E is equal to sigma by 2 epsilon naught. So if the sheet is a conducting sheet, then E is equal to sigma by epsilon naught, and if it is a non-conducting sheet, then the electric field intensity is equal to sigma by 2 epsilon naught, and this case is not in our syllabus even though I explained. So it needs no derivation, and the final steps can be changed like this. Next one, I will go to the electric field intensity due to uniformly charged sphere. Uniformly charged means it is a non-conducting material. So what is the electric field intensity due to this charged sphere? Say first we will go through the introduction. Here this is the non-conducting sphere, this one. This sphere is non-conducting sphere and it has a radius equal to r, this radius, and O is the center of the sphere. A charge plus q is given to the sphere. Since this is a non-conducting sphere, the charge given to this sphere is evenly distributed throughout the sphere like this. In order to avoid confusion in the figure, I have written just plus q here, not plus signs are not given here. And I want to measure the electric field intensity at the point P. This point P is at a distance r from the center of the sphere. Then what is the direction of electric field intensity? If you place a unit positive charge at the point P, then this unit positive charge is pushed away by this unit positive charge. That is the force, due to the force of repulsion, the unit positive charge will move in this direction, and this is the direction of the electric field intensity or electric field line, that is represented by E. So E is the magnitude of the electric field intensity at this point P, and this is the direction. And we have to take the closed surface. Here we are taking the closed surface as a sphere. This sphere is the Gaussian surface and it has to go through the point where the electric field intensity is to be measured. So here small r is greater than capital R. Capital R means radius of the sphere. And on this Gaussian surface, we are taking a small area. This is the small area, and this area value is equal to ds. And what is the aerial vector? Aerial vector means the vector that is perpendicular to the small area and having the magnitude or length of the vector is equal to the area of this small surface. This is also known for us. Then what is the flux passing through this small area? That is equal to, say, d phi. That d phi is equal to E bar dot ds bar. And if we want to measure the total surface flux throughout the area, then it has to be integrated. Then integral E bar dot ds bar is equal to q by epsilon naught, and this is as per Gauss law. And we know A bar dot B bar is equal to AB cos theta, that is the dot product. Similarly here E bar dot ds bar is equal to E ds cos theta. This is equal to q by epsilon naught. The theta value in this case is the angle between E and ds. So here E bar is in this direction and ds bar is also in the same direction. Then theta is equal to 0. Angle between E bar and ds bar, that is equal to 0. Then substituting this value, that will be equal to integral E ds, that is equal to q by epsilon naught. And here E is also a constant. If the charge given to the sphere and the radius of the sphere are constants, and the point where the electric field intensity is to be measured is also fixed, that is the small r value is also fixed, then E can be taken out and we are taking ds. So integral ds. When we are integrating this ds, we have to give the limits of integration. Limits means the lower limit and the upper limit. The lower limit means what is the area when we took very small area. Very small area means it is in point size. If that area is in point size, then its area is 0. That is the lower limit, lowest value. So the lower limit value is equal to 0. This is 0. Next one is, what is the maximum area? If you took the total area of the Gaussian surface, then this is equal to the surface area of the sphere, that is equal to 4 pi r square, small r square. So this is the upper limit. So lower limit value is 0, upper limit value is 4 pi r square. Integral ds is equal to s. So integral ds is equal to s. Then substituting the lower limit and upper limit, first upper limit substitute this value, s instead of s we will take 4 pi r square, and minus the lower limit value is 0 because s is 0 when we took in the form of a point. So the lower limit value is 0, then E into 4 pi r square, this value is equal to, what is the right side value? Q by epsilon naught. So this is q by epsilon naught. Then bring the 4 pi value and r square value to the right hand side from the left hand side. Then E will become 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. This 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught is also known for us while explaining electric field intensity and Coulomb's law also. And this is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into the remaining part is q by r square. So the electric field intensity expression for the sphere is equal to E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into q by r square. Here this equation does not depend on the radius of the sphere, that is capital R. So there is no term capital R in this equation. So the E value does not depend on the radius of the sphere. It depends only on the distance between the center of the sphere and where the electric field intensity is to be determined, that is the point B. That is the distance between the point O and the point P. The charge given to the sphere is constant. So Q is also constant. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught is also constant. If you take these two things as a constant, then the relation between E and R is E is directly proportional to 1 by r square or E is inversely proportional to r square. Suppose if we want to take or measure electric field intensity at two different points. Two different points means these two different points are at distances r1 and r2 from the center of the sphere. Then the electric field intensity at those points are E1 and say E2. Then E1 by E2 is equal to R2 square by R1 square. So these two are inversely proportional. Because of that, if E1 is on numerator, then R1 square is on the denominator. Similarly, E2 is in the denominator and R2 square is on the numerator. So that is the end of the first case, and here the point is taken outside the sphere. Next we will go to the case 2 when the point is taken on the surface of the sphere, and third case is when the point is taken inside the sphere. So in three cases, in the first case we draw the expression for electric field intensity outside the sphere, and in the second case we will draw the expression for the electric field intensity on the surface of the sphere. In the third case we will find the electric field intensity within the sphere. So coming to the second case, here in the second case we want to measure the electric field intensity on the surface of the sphere. Then this point P is to be taken on the surface of the sphere. Then this small r value becomes capital R. That means the distance r, small r, is equal to the radius of the sphere. Then if we substitute capital R value instead of small r value in this equation, then this E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q by R square. Next one is the third case, that is if we want to measure the electric field intensity inside the sphere. Say this is the sphere, this one is the sphere, and the point P is taken within the sphere, and here we want to measure the electric field intensity. Say P dash is the point where the unit positive charge is measured. Let capital R be the radius of this sphere. When the charge is given, the charge is uniformly distributed. Here the point taken is at a distance smaller from the center of the sphere. So here small r is less than capital R value. Capital R means the radius of the sphere. The total charge given to this sphere is say plus Q, this plus Q value. Then if you take the Gaussian surface, that is also a sphere. So always the Gaussian surface is taken such that it can pass through the point where the electric field intensity is to be measured. Within the Gaussian surface, say the charge is plus q dash. So the total charge is plus q, and within the Gaussian surface the charge is plus q dash, and the electric field intensity is away from the center of the sphere. I have already explained earlier. So this is the direction of electric field intensity E. And take a small area ds on the Gaussian surface, and its aerial vector is perpendicular to this small area. Say this ds bar is in this direction, and the angle between this E bar and ds bar is equal to 0. And with this introduction, I will enter into the derivation part. As per Gauss law, integral E bar dot ds bar is equal to 1 by epsilon naught into q dash. Here, as per Gauss law, the total flux passing through the Gaussian surface or the that is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times to the total charge contained within the closed surface. Here the closed surface is the Gaussian surface. So within the Gaussian surface, q dash is the charge, not plus q. So q dash is the charge within the Gaussian surface. Here we have to measure this q dash value. And to measure this q dash value, first we have to know, or first we have to go through the charge density. This charge density rho is equal to q by v. Q is the total charge given to the total sphere, and v is the volume of the sphere. The volume of the sphere is equal to 4 by 3 pi r cube. So the charge density will become q by 4 by 3 pi r cube, where v is the volume of the total sphere. Next, coming to the charge within this Gaussian surface, then the charge density is to be multiplied with the volume of the volume within the Gaussian surface, that is the volume of the sphere, this within the Gaussian surface. Then the charge within the volume of the Gaussian sphere is equal to v dash is equal to 4 by 3 pi small r cube, where small r is the radius of the sphere, that is the Gaussian surface. Then what is the charge within the Gaussian surface? This is equal to q dash. Q dash is equal to the charge density into volume of the Gaussian, that is the volume within the Gaussian surface. We know that rho is equal to q by 4 by 3 pi r cube into v dash is equal to 4 by 3 pi small r cube, and 4 by 3 and pi gets cancelled. Then q dash is equal to q into r cube by capital R cube. So substituting this q dash value in the above equation, that is for the Gauss law equation 1, then integral E bar dot ds bar is equal to 1 by epsilon naught into q dash is equal to q into small r cube by capital R cube. Integral E bar dot ds bar is equal to E ds cos theta, and cos theta, in this cos theta, theta is equal to 0 and cos 0 is equal to 1. So integral E ds E is constant quantity for a particular sphere having a particular charge and at a particular point where the electric field intensity is to be measured. Then E is taken outside and integral ds, and here also the integration limits are to be taken. I have told you in the earlier case the lower limit is 0 when the surface Gaussian surface is in point size, its value is equal to 0, and when the total area of the Gaussian surface is taken, the surface area of the sphere with a small r radius is equal to 4 pi r square. Then taking the limits, then integral ds is equal to s, lower limit is equal to 0, upper limit is equal to 4 pi r square. Then the right hand side is same, then the left hand side will become e into 4 pi r square minus 0, that is the lower limit value. Lower limit value is 0, so only e into 4 pi r square remains. So e into 4 pi r square is equal to 1 by epsilon naught into this q into small r cube by capital R cube. Here on the left hand side we have r square value, on the right hand side we have r cube value, and r square gets cancelled, only r remains on the right side instead of r cube. And take this 4 pi value to the other side, that is to the right hand side, then this will become q by 4 pi epsilon naught into small r by capital R cube. Capital R cube is also a constant, q by 4 pi epsilon naught is also a constant. If you took these two things as a constant one, then the relation between E and R is directly proportional. So E is directly proportional to R, and we can also write for electric field intensities at two different points, E1 by E2 is equal to R1 by R2. So within this sphere the relation is E is directly proportional to R, and outside the sphere the relation is E is inversely proportional to R square, or E is directly proportional to 1 by R square. And if we want to a graph in between E and small r, then say here is the sphere, this is the sphere of capital R radius, and the graph is taken by taking small r, that is the distance between the point charge where the electric field is to be measured from the center of the sphere is small r, that is taken on the x-axis, and the electric field intensity E is taken on the y-axis. Then within the sphere the relation between E and small r is directly proportional. Then we will get a straight line passing through the origin, and this is the straight line passing through the origin, this one, because this E and R both are directly proportional. So as R increases, E also increases, and outside the sphere the relation is E is inversely proportional to R square, or E is directly proportional to 1 by R square. Then E value decreases as R value increases, and for the sphere this is the graph. But if you take on the other side from the center of the sphere, then the same mirror is observed. So this is the graph on the other side. You can draw any one or both. according to your will and wish. This is the end of the applications of Gauss law as per your syllabus. Thank you.